The moment I saw Mateo walking down the aisle, arm linked with his groom Ryan, my entire world came crashing down around me. I thought our secret meetings were nothing more than a casual fling, a way to escape the pressures of my life without any real commitment. But in that instant, as the sun shone brightly on their happy faces and the guests cheered, I realized how wrong I had been and how much I had lost by keeping my true feelings buried deep inside. It had all started 6 months earlier in the bustling streets of New York City. I was Sebastian Thompson, a 28-year-old marketing executive at a mid-sized firm, living a life that looked perfect from the outside. I had a good job, a nice apartment in Brooklyn, and a family back in Texas who still believed I was the straight son they raised with traditional values. My parents, both devout Christians, had always talked about me settling down with a nice girl and giving them grandchildren. Coming out as gay was never an option in their eyes, and I had internalized that fear so deeply that I convinced myself casual encounters were all I deserved. That night, I met Mateo at a rooftop bar in Manhattan. The city lights glittered below us like scattered diamonds, and the warm summer breeze carried laughter from every corner. He was 30, a graphic designer with a warm smile and dark wavy hair that fell just right over his forehead. He was American through and through, born and raised in California, but with a confidence that came from being out and proud since college. We hit it off immediately, laughing over drinks about bad client pitches and the chaos of city life. His laugh was easy and genuine, the kind that made the noise around us fade into the background. One thing led to another, and we ended up at his place in Chelsea. It was supposed to be just one night, no strings attached. I'm not looking for anything serious, I told him as we parted ways the next morning, the sunlight already warming the sidewalk. He nodded with that easy grin of his. Same here, Sebastian. Let's keep it fun. But fun turned into regular hookups. We'd meet after work, share stories over takeout Thai food on his couch, and lose ourselves in each other without labeling anything. I loved the way he listened to me talk about my dreams of starting my own agency someday, his eyes never leaving mine. He opened up about his own struggles with past relationships, how his last boyfriend had left because Mateo wanted more stability than late-night parties. Yet every time things got too close, I'd pull back. This is just casual, right? I'd remind him, or maybe myself, while buttoning my shirt in the dim light of his bedroom. He never pushed, but I could see the questions in his eyes, the slight hesitation before he smiled again. Then came the first crack in my carefully built walls. My best friend Jordan, the only person who knew about my secret life, kept urging me to be honest with myself. We were at our usual gym in Williamsburg, sweat dripping as we spotted each other on the bench press. Sebastian, you're falling for him. Admit it, he said between reps, his voice low so no one else could hear. Jordan was gay too, out and living freely with his partner of 3 years, but he respected my choice to stay closeted. Still, his words nagged at me long after I left the gym, echoing through my quiet apartment. One weekend, my parents came to visit from Texas. I had to play the part of the straight son, hiding any trace of Mateo from my apartment. I spent hours scrubbing the place, removing every hint of another man's presence. When Mom asked if I was seeing anyone special, I lied smoothly about a fictional female coworker named Emily who loved hiking. Dad clapped me on the back and talked about how proud he was that I was focusing on my career first. The guilt ate at me like acid, but I pushed it down, smiling through dinner at a noisy Italian place in Little Italy. That night, I texted Mateo to cancel our plans. Family stuff, I said simply. His reply was understanding but short. No worries, catch you later. I spent the evening alone on my couch, staring at the ceiling, wondering why the cancellation felt heavier than it should have. As the weeks passed, our time together grew more meaningful despite my rules. We'd cook dinner at his place, chopping vegetables side by side, while he told me about his latest design project for a nonprofit. We watched old movies on his laptop, his head eventually resting on my shoulder, as if it belonged there. Mateo shared how his family had accepted him fully, even marching in pride parades with him every year back in California. It was a world away from mine, where holidays meant polite questions about when I'd bring a girl home. I envied him, but it also highlighted my own fears. When he asked if I wanted to meet his friends for brunch one Sunday, I made excuses. Not yet, let's keep it low-key. He agreed, but I could feel the distance growing in the small sigh he let out. Then, the misunderstanding happened. At work, a colleague saw me leaving Mateo's building one morning and joked about it in the break room. Late night, Thompson? The rumor mill started swirling quietly, but I denied everything with a forced laugh. When Mateo heard through a mutual friend at a gallery opening, he confronted me gently over coffee the next day. We sat at a small table outside a cafe in Soho, the steam rising from our cups. Sebastian, if you're ashamed of us, maybe we should stop, he said, his voice steady but his eyes sad. I panicked inside, my heart racing, and said the words I thought would protect me. It was always just casual. He looked hurt, the kind of pain that doesn't shout but lingers, but he nodded. Okay, if that's what you want. That night, I went home alone, my chest tight with regret that refused to leave. The days that followed were a blur of self-doubt and forced normalcy. I threw myself into work, staying late to finalize campaigns and avoiding the empty feeling in my apartment. Jordan called me out on it during our next gym session, wiping sweat from his brow. Dude, you just pushed away the best thing that's happened to you. When are you going to stop living for your parents and start living for yourself? His words hit hard, but I wasn't ready to listen. Instead, I tried to prove him wrong by going on a date with a woman from the office, Sarah. It was awkward and forced, the conversation stilted over pasta, and by the end of the evening I knew it was pointless. My heart was with Matteo, even if I couldn't admit it to anyone, least of all myself. Meanwhile, Matteo seemed to move on. I saw him at a company-wide event 2 weeks later with a new guy, laughing and looking happy in a way that twisted something deep inside me. The jealousy burned hot, but I told myself it was for the best. Little did I know, that was only the beginning of my unraveling. The city kept moving around me, indifferent to the storm building in my chest, and I wondered how long I could keep pretending I was fine. Weeks turned into a month, and the ache in my chest refused to fade. I told myself I was over it, that Matteo was just another chapter in the book I kept closed from the world. But every time my phone buzzed, I hoped it was him, and every time it wasn't, the disappointment settled heavier. Work became my refuge. I poured hours into a new campaign for a lifestyle brand, staying late in the office until the cleaning crew arrived. My boss noticed, praising my dedication, but Jordan saw through it during our Friday night beers at a quiet bar in Bushwick. You look like hell, man, he said, sliding a fresh pint across the table. When are you going to stop punishing yourself? I shrugged it off, changing the subject to his latest promotion, but his words stayed with me on the subway ride home. My family called more often after their visit. Mom sent recipes for Sunday pot roast, hinting that I should find someone to share them with. Dad talked about the family business back in Texas, how it needed a steady hand like mine someday. You're doing great up there, son, but don't forget where you come from, he'd say, his voice warm with expectation. Each conversation chipped away at me, reminding me why I had built my walls so high. I started dating Sarah more seriously, or at least pretending to. We went to movies and dinners, and I introduced her to my parents over a video call. She was kind and funny, but every kiss felt like a performance. At night, alone in my bed, my mind drifted back to Matteo's laugh, the way his hand had felt on my back. Then I heard the news that changed everything. Jordan mentioned it casually over lunch at a food truck near the office. Matteo's been seeing someone new. Guy named Ryan. Seems serious. The words hit like a punch. I forced a smile, asking for details as if it didn't matter, but inside I was reeling. Ryan was a lawyer, successful and out, the kind of guy who could give Matteo the stability I had refused to offer. That night, I scrolled through Matteo's social media for the first time in weeks. There they were, photos of them at a rooftop party, arms around each other, smiling like the future was already written. I closed the app and stared at the ceiling, the city noise outside my window suddenly too loud. I tried to move on in my own way. I threw myself into a new project at work, volunteering for extra responsibilities that kept me busy until midnight. Sarah noticed the distance and gently asked if everything was okay. I lied again, saying work was stressful. But the truth was gnawing at me. One evening, after a long day, I found myself walking past Matteo's building. The lights were on in his apartment, and I stood there on the sidewalk, hands in my pockets, wondering what he was doing. Did he think about me at all? The thought made me turn away quickly, heading home with a heaviness I couldn't shake. Jordan tried to help. We met for coffee on a rainy Saturday, sitting under the awning of our favorite cafe. You need to talk to him, Sebastian. Tell him how you feel before it's too late. I shook my head, staring into my cup. It's better this way. He deserves someone who isn't hiding. Jordan sighed, frustrated but loyal as always. Hiding is killing you, man. Your family will come around eventually. They love you. I wanted to believe him, but the fear of their disappointment was stronger. That night, I dreamed of Matteo's smile, only to wake up alone with the rain tapping against the window. The misunderstanding deepened when I ran into Matteo at a mutual friend's birthday party a few weeks later. The room was crowded, music pulsing, but our eyes locked across the space. He looked good, happier even, with Ryan by his side. We exchanged awkward hellos, the kind that felt like knives. How have you been? He asked, his voice polite but distant. I muttered something about work being busy, avoiding his gaze. Ryan smiled warmly, oblivious, and I felt like the intruder I had become. Later, Jordan pulled me aside. That was painful to watch. You still love him, don't you? I didn't answer, but the truth hung between us. As summer faded into fall, the leaves in Central Park turning gold, I started questioning everything. My job felt empty, my relationship with Sarah forced. One night, after another canceled date with her, I sat on my fire escape with a beer and let myself remember the good times with Mateo. The way he made me feel seen for the first time. The way he never asked me to be someone I wasn't, until I forced him to. The regret was a quiet storm, building slowly, and I wondered if I had already lost my chance at something real. The city lights blurred below me, and for the first time, I let myself cry. But life didn't stop. Work deadlines loomed, family calls continued, and Mateo's life moved forward without me. I saw another photo online, them at a beach weekend, arms linked, the ocean behind them. The image stayed with me for days. Jordan kept checking in, his loyalty a steady anchor. You're stronger than this, Sebastian. Face it before it destroys you. I nodded, but the words felt hollow. Deep down, I knew the casual fling I had insisted on had become the most important thing in my life, and I had let it slip away. The turning point was coming, though I didn't know it yet. The pressure inside me was rising, and soon it would break everything open. Fall deepened, and the weight of my choices pressed harder with every passing day. I tried to bury the pain in routine. Early mornings at the gym, long hours at the office, and evenings with Sarah that felt more like obligation than connection. She was patient, suggesting weekend trips upstate to clear our heads, but my mind was elsewhere. One Saturday, as we drove through the changing leaves of the Hudson Valley, she asked the question I had dreaded. Sebastian, do you see a future with us? I gripped the steering wheel tighter, the words catching in my throat. I'm trying, was all I could manage. She nodded, but the silence that followed said everything. Back in the city, the rumors at work had died down, but my colleague who had seen me leaving Mateo's building gave me knowing looks. I ignored them, focusing on a big presentation that could lead to a promotion. During the prep, late one night in the empty office, my phone lit up with a text from Jordan. Mateo's engagement party is next weekend. Ryan proposed. You okay? The words stared back at me, cold and final. Engagement. The casual fling had become someone else's forever. I sat there in the dim light, the screen's glow the only thing illuminating the room, and felt the floor drop out from under me. I didn't reply to Jordan right away. Instead, I walked home through the crisp night air, the streets alive with couples and friends. Every laugh I passed felt like a reminder of what I had thrown away. At home, I poured a drink and scrolled through old messages with Mateo, the ones I had never deleted. Simple texts about dinner plans, silly memes, late night you up, jokes that had meant more than I admitted. The regret turned sharp, cutting through the numbness I had built. Why had I been so afraid? The answer was always there. My parents' voices in my head, the fear of losing their love, the weight of tradition that had shaped me since childhood. The next day, Jordan showed up at my door unannounced, 2 coffees in hand. We sat on the couch, and he didn't sugarcoat it. You need to decide, Sebastian. Keep hiding or fight for what you want. Mateo's moving on, but that doesn't mean you have to stay stuck. His loyalty was unwavering, the kind of friendship that had carried me through college and the move to New York. I told him about the family pressure, how Dad had recently mentioned a job opportunity back in Texas that came with the expectation of settling down the right way. Jordan listened, then said quietly, they might surprise you. But you won't know until you try. I wanted to believe him, but the risk felt too big. Work became my escape again. I nailed the presentation, earning praise from the team, but the success felt hollow. Sarah sensed the shift and suggested we take a break. I deserve someone who's all in, she said gently over dinner, her eyes kind. I didn't argue. Alone again, I started running in the early mornings along the Brooklyn Bridge, the cold air burning my lungs. Each step pounded with the same question. What if I had told Mateo the truth? The misunderstanding that had pushed him away now felt like my own creation, a wall I had built brick by brick. Then came the invitation. A mutual friend posted about Mateo and Ryan's engagement party on social media, tagging people I knew. I stared at the event details for hours, debating whether to go. Jordan encouraged me. Closure, man. You need it. I bought a new shirt, telling myself it was just to show I was fine. The night of the party, the venue was a trendy loft in Williamsburg, string lights glowing softly overhead. I arrived late, heart hammering, and spotted them immediately. Mateo looked radiant in a dark suit, Ryan's arm around his waist. They laughed with friends, the kind of easy joy I had once shared with him. When our eyes met across the room, the world narrowed. He smiled politely, but there was something else there, a flicker of the old connection. We talked briefly near the bar, the music pulsing around us. "Congratulations," I managed. He nodded. "Thanks, Sebastian. You look good." The words were surface level, but the air between us crackled with everything unsaid. Ryan joined us, friendly and unaware, and I excused myself soon after, the room suddenly too warm. Outside on the street, the cool night air hit me hard. Jordan texted to check in, and I replied with a single word: hurts. Walking home, the city lights blurred through unshed tears. The secret I had kept for so long was eating me alive, and seeing Mateo happy with someone else forced me to face the truth. I loved him. Not casually, not as a fling, but deeply, in a way that terrified me. The betrayal wasn't his, it was mine, to myself and to him. As I climbed the stairs to my apartment, the decision started forming. I couldn't keep living this way. The psychological toll was too heavy, the isolation too complete. Change was coming, whether I was ready or not. The following weeks were a storm of emotion. I distanced myself from Sarah completely, focusing instead on therapy sessions Jordan had recommended. The counselor listened as I unpacked years of fear, the traditional expectations that had shaped my every choice. "You're allowed to want happiness," she said simply. Those words planted a seed. At work, I started opening up to a trusted colleague, testing the waters of honesty. The response was supportive, surprising me. But the real test loomed, telling my family. The thought kept me awake at night, the consequences unknown. Meanwhile, Mateo's life continued forward, wedding plans in motion. I saw updates online, each one a fresh reminder of what I had lost. The conflict inside me grew, pushing me toward a breaking point I couldn't yet see. Winter arrived with biting winds that mirrored the chill in my heart. I threw myself into therapy, session after session, peeling back layers I had buried for years. The counselor helped me see how my fear of rejection had cost me the one person who had made me feel truly alive. Jordan remained my rock, joining me for long walks in Prospect Park, where we talked through every scenario. "What's the worst that happens if you come out?" he asked one afternoon, snow dusting the paths. "They might struggle at first, but they love you, Sebastian." His loyalty never wavered, even when I pushed back in frustration. Work offered a small victory. My promotion came through, and with it came new responsibilities that kept my mind occupied. I started mentoring a junior designer, a young gay man who was out and proud. Watching him navigate the office with confidence inspired me in ways I hadn't expected. One evening, over drinks after a team happy hour, he shared his own coming out story. "It wasn't easy with my family, but living honestly is worth it." His words lingered, chipping away at my resistance. The secret I had guarded so carefully began to crack in unexpected ways. During a holiday call with my parents, Mom mentioned a church friend's daughter who was single and perfect for you. The pressure felt heavier than ever. I changed the subject, but afterward I sat in silence, the weight of years of lies pressing down. Jordan suggested I visit them for Christmas, use the trip as a chance to test the waters. The idea terrified me, but I booked the flight anyway. Back in Texas for the holidays, the familiar house smelled of pine and Mom's cooking. Dad talked about the family business. Mom fussed over my weight and single status. I smiled through it all, but the tension built. On Christmas Eve, after too much eggnog, I almost said something. The words hovered on my tongue, but fear won again. I returned to New York with a heavier heart, the misunderstanding with Mateo now intertwined with my family's expectations. Then the real blow came. Jordan called me late one night, voice urgent. "Mateo's wedding is in 2 months. Ryan's family is pushing for a big event." The news hit like a wave. I stared at the ceiling, the reality sinking in. The man I loved was building a life without me, and my silence had made it possible. The next day, I saw the save the date in my email from a shared friend. Elegant script, their names together. I deleted it immediately, but the image burned in my mind. The psychological conflict intensified. I started writing unsent letters to Mateo, pouring out everything I had held back. The betrayal wasn't his moving on, it was my refusal to fight for us. One night, after a particularly rough therapy session, I called Jordan in tears. I sacrificed the best thing in my life for a lie. He listened, then said, "Then fix what you can. Tell the truth, even if it's too late for him." His friendship was the one constant, a lifeline in the storm. Work became a battlefield of its own. During a team meeting, the topic of diversity came up, and I found myself speaking up about inclusion for LGBTQ employees. The words surprised even me, but the support from colleagues felt like a small step forward. Sarah texted occasionally, checking in as a friend, and I appreciated her grace. But my focus remained on the growing need to face myself. As January turned to February, the wedding date loomed closer. I avoided social media, but the city itself seemed to mock me with happy couples everywhere. One evening, walking home from the subway, I passed the bar where Mateo and I had first met. The memory flooded back so strongly I had to stop, leaning against the wall. The casual fling had evolved into love, and I had let fear destroy it. The turning point was approaching, a moment that would force me to choose between hiding forever or risking everything for authenticity. The pressure from family, the loyalty of friends, and the ache for Mateo all collided, pushing me toward the decision that would change my life. The weeks before the wedding blurred into a haze of preparation and panic. I had decided, in the quiet hours after another sleepless night, that I couldn't let Mateo walk down that aisle without knowing the truth. The secret that had protected me for so long now felt like a prison. Jordan helped me plan, his steady presence calming my nerves. "Whatever happens, I've got your back," he said over coffee, his eyes serious. His friendship had never faltered, even when I had pushed everyone else away. I reached out to Mateo through a simple text. "Can we talk? It's important." The reply came hours later. "Sure. Coffee tomorrow." We met at the same cafe where our misunderstanding had begun months earlier. He arrived looking composed, but I saw the caution in his eyes. Over steaming mugs, I laid everything bare. I was wrong to call it casual. "I love you, Mateo. I've been hiding because of my family, the expectations, the fear. But I'm done running." The words hung between us, raw and honest. He listened, his expression shifting from surprise to sadness. "Sebastian," I waited. "But Ryan, he's good to me. He doesn't make me feel like a secret." The pain in his voice mirrored my own. We talked for hours, the cafe emptying around us. He admitted the hurt I had caused, the way my pullbacks had made him question his worth. The conversation was a turning point, painful but necessary. That night, I called my parents. The conversation was the hardest of my life. "Mom, Dad, I need to tell you something. I'm gay." The silence on the other end stretched forever. Dad's voice cracked first. "Son, we love you. This is a lot to take in, but we'll figure it out." Mom cried, but her tears were mixed with questions. The reaction wasn't perfect, but it wasn't rejection. The weight I had carried for years lifted slightly, leaving room for hope. Jordan celebrated with me over pizza, toasting to courage. The days leading to the wedding were a whirlwind. I threw myself into self-reflection, journaling late into the night about the journey that had brought me here. Work suffered a bit, but my boss was understanding after I explained my situation. The societal pressures that had once defined me now felt surmountable. I attended a local LGBTQ support group, hearing stories that mirrored mine and finding strength in community. Mateo and I met once more before the big day. We walked through Central Park, the early spring buds just beginning to show. "I'm happy for you," I told him, meaning it despite the ache. He smiled sadly. "Thank you for telling me the truth. It means more than you know." The conversation brought closure, but also a new beginning for me. The sacrifice of letting him go was the hardest decision, but it came with the freedom of living honestly. The night before the wedding, I sat on my fire escape again, the city humming below. The psychological growth was real. I had faced the misunderstanding, the betrayal of my own fears, and the family expectations head on. The consequences had been painful, but they had led to this moment of clarity. I was ready for whatever came next. The wedding day dawned bright and clear, the kind of perfect spring morning that made New York feel alive with possibility. I stood at the back of the outdoor venue in a park overlooking the river, far enough that I wouldn't be noticed, but close enough to see everything. Guests filled the white chairs, laughter and music floating on the breeze. When Mateo appeared, walking down the aisle with Ryan, my heart clenched, but this time the pain was different. It wasn't collapse, it was release. I had come to witness, to honor the love I had lost by finally accepting myself. As the ceremony unfolded, vows exchanged under a flower arch, I thought about the journey. The casual fling that had become everything, the misunderstandings that had torn us apart, the family pressure I had finally confronted, the loyal friendship that had carried me through. Jordan stood beside me now, a silent support. After the kiss and cheers, I slipped away quietly, but not before Mateo's eyes found mine across the crowd. A small nod passed between us, acknowledgement of what had been and what could never be again. Weeks later, life had shifted in ways I never imagined. My parents visited New York, and the conversations were honest, sometimes awkward, but filled with love. Dad admitted his own fears stemmed from his upbringing, and Mom hugged me tighter than ever. The traditional expectations hadn't vanished, but they no longer defined me. At work, I came out fully, and the support was overwhelming. I started dating again, slowly, with someone who saw the real me from the start. Mateo and Ryan settled into married life, and I wished them well from afar. The betrayal I had felt had transformed into gratitude for the lesson. I had sacrificed the illusion of safety for the truth, and the psychological growth was profound. Jordan and I celebrated with a trip to California, where his partner joined us for hikes and long talks. The friendships that had fractured under my secrecy were stronger now. One evening, standing on the Brooklyn Bridge watching the sunset, I realized the journey had been worth every tear. The search for identity, the love that challenged me, the acceptance I finally claimed. Life in modern America wasn't perfect for gay men, but it was mine to live fully. True or false? Hiding your true self to protect others is ever truly worth the cost of losing your own happiness?